Hi, I'm Michael Smith for Nevada Trails. Tonight I have a very special show. I have Christopher Grimes from Logworx, and we're going to talk about log furniture and things like that. Well, thank you for being on the show.
Hi, you bet.
Yeah, when I was a kid, my grandfather used to make furniture from, he'd bring in logs from the forest and he'd work on them in the garage, and then when the pieces got smaller, he'd take them down to the basement and work on them downstairs. But he didn't like kids around at the workshop, so I didn't really get a whole lot of training. And when I saw your furniture, I absolutely fell in love with what you do. And so anyways, thank you for being on the show. And basically the process is that you work thinning the forest with the Forest Service. Is that what you do?
Yeah, a partner and I, we had a contract with the Forest Service, and the wood that I'm using now came from thinning 20 acres up in the Galena area.
So thinning 20 acres.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound easy.
No, it took it took a while. It took 6 months at least. I mean, just two of us, and it was all done with chainsaws and pretty much by hand. We didn't have big machinery in there, so it was a lot of work.
So when you thin a forest by hand, you cut the wood, you take the wood out?
Yep.
But by your own trucks and things?
Yeah, we had a dump trailer, and we pretty much hauled it all out of there, loaded it up by hand, and removed it that way.
So when you bid on 20 acres, do you walk the 20 acres before you bid it out?
Yeah, definitely.
And are you with the Forest Service this time? I mean, do they tell you what to cut down and things like that?
Yeah, they come in and mark all the trees, and we cut them down, and yeah.
Well, are they big dead ones, or are they just?
No, they were live standing. They just I guess it was getting too thick, so they dropped a lot of the smaller trees. A lot of it we sold off as firewood, and some of it that was the right diameter, anywhere from 8 inches down to 2 inches, we cut into like 8-foot lengths and hauled it out to be built as log furniture.
So while you're thinning out the forest and you're cutting up wood for firewood.
Yeah, most of it went as firewood, and then.
And in the meantime, you're putting stuff aside.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that sounds pretty good. And behind me, you have one of your pieces, and you did it from I don't know if you can see the bar stool, but it's a special bar stool that you have at the Genoa bar, right?
Well, it's a prototype, and we're going to see if the owner there likes it. That's such an old building that we decided on a 3-legged bar stool because a tripod can find flat ground anywhere. The floor's kind of warped in there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Well, I just like the idea of taking things from the Forest Service instead of burning them and turning them into furniture. And the next picture, we have some items that you created for the home, and this is one that. Let's see, can you put it on the full screen? What's it?
Yeah, that's a coat rack that actually it was a little tree, and so the branches are natural, and it's all hand peeled with a draw knife, and right there it's raw. Later on I took a weed burner and put a light burn on it, and then it had about 4 coats of lacquer on it, and I sold that to a friend with a couple of wine racks that I make.
So essentially, this is in your truck when you're at the work site, and you brought it home.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was a piece.
So you brought this to your shop. You have a shop at home.
Right.
And then you take the bark off first, and then what's the process?
Yep. Well, I cut it to length. Actually, that piece there, the top was broken off, so I left it that way. I just kind of hit it with a sander to get the sharp edges off, and then I hand peel it with a draw knife, and then take a grinder to the little branches sticking out. I cut those to whatever length, and then hit them with a grinder to take the sharp edges off, and then I sand everything down, and from there put a light burn on it and lacquer it.
So a light burn is just...
Yeah, with a weed burner, I just, later in the show, I have a wine rack that's got a burn on it, and we can...
So it basically toughens it up or makes it darker?
Yeah, it pulls out the grain a lot more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because this piece here is kind of natural. I'm actually going to it's so light colored right now that I'm going to put a light burn on it before I polyurethane it.
Yeah, it looks so really white to me.
Yeah, this is all the wood is Jeffrey pine, and it's a nice pine to work with.
It's absolutely beautiful, and we did a show on immigrant trails, and the way you do it looks like it's all pegs. It looks like this is something they did in the old days too, huh?
Yeah, it's mortise and tenon joints, and all the inside furniture I glue and dowel it. It's so the mortise and tenon joints are glued, and then I dowel them and glue those also. So they're put together pretty good. Outside furniture, I'll use metal lags because we're getting a lot more weather outside, so glue sometimes, if it gets wet for too long, it'll loosen up, and so I lag the outside furniture. And
So you do both outside furniture, inside furniture.
Right,
And
right.
Is there any variety of stuff you do, or what's your? You do benches, beds.
Pretty much anything somebody can come up with. Benches, beds, coffee tables, nightstands, swings. Actually, it's like a bench that hangs from its own log stand from chains, and yeah.
So if I call you up and I want you to do some custom work for me, you have wood in storage to do that?
Oh yeah, I've got piles and piles.
You only have 20 acres to go, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Right.
How much wood did you pull off for yourself off 20 acres?
Well, we sold probably 240 cords.
Wow.
And somewhere close to that. And then I don't know how much I have in the log piles of logs for the furniture. And
so when you bid for the Forest Service, you're thinking how many cords you can get to sell to get your money back on for the labor, or do they pay you? I don't know how it works.
Well, they kind of paid. They paid for that also, and then we had to buy the wood, and then we sold it off as. Yeah, it's the way they work is it's a little different, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I had the Forest on not too long ago, and they were talking about doing some open burns. I was thinking that some other people might want to grab that wood and save them from burning that wood.
Yeah, I think they go through and put a lot of that stuff into piles, and then they have burns. I haven't really worked for the Forest Service doing that kind of thing, but yeah, we just had a contract that we went in there and cleaned up the.
I just find it hard to believe that you guys can get a truck in and out of there for 20 acres to pull wood out.
Well, luckily there was an access road, and going through, we did have to kind of build little trails and a few little places to get in and out of. It was a pretty tough 20 acres. It was.
So, are you bidding on more projects, or are you going to work on your custom wood business at home for a while?
From what I understand, there might be a few bids coming up next fall. That's all I've heard. My partner takes care of that end of it.
But you'd rather be making wood anyways, or making furniture anyways.
Yeah, it's a little easier on the body.
Yeah. Well, the next picture is absolutely. I think it's a bed. And this is one of the items you make.
Yeah, that's a bed that I made a couple of years ago, actually.
Now these are all. This is probably for your own personal use, but someone could call you up and order something like this from you.
Oh yeah.
Because do you pre-make these things, or do you do it from order?
Both. I'll make a few of them and set them out and see if anybody gets interested, or they can come over and pick their own pieces of wood, posts and stuff.
Well, how much time would something like this take to create a bed? That looks like a lot of pieces.
It takes maybe about a half a week or so.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the next picture is I think we have another shot of the another view of the bed, right? Is that a bed?
Yeah.
Can you go full screen? Yeah.
Yeah, that's one. That bed there has a lot of character wood to it. That's a queen size, and that was built. I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. That one sits in my house.
Well, it's absolutely beautiful. And then
Thanks.
you've been doing this for your Logworx for how long?
Well, it's fairly new. I'm just trying. Actually, it's just getting going.
Well, we're going to go ahead and take a short break, and we're going to get some more props for Chris to show us more of his work, and we'll be back in a minute or so. Thank you.
In order to protect our riding opportunities, we've got to tread lightly. That means staying on roads, trails, and areas designated for ATVs. Also, go over, not around trail obstacles to avoid widening trails. And cross rivers slowly, and only at places where the trail crosses the stream. Join the millions of responsible riders who protect our privileges and our natural resources by treading lightly in the outdoors. Visit Tread Lightly at treadlightly.org.
Hi, I'm Fish and Game Warden Patrick Foy. Boaters at Lake Tahoe should expect watercraft inspections at all launch sites around the lake. These inspections are designed to prevent the destructive spread of zebra and quagga mussels, as well as other aquatic invasive species. If brought into Lake Tahoe, invasive species will damage boats and the pristine waters and be impossible to remove. Remember to clean, drain, and dry your boat every time before entering a new body of water. Clean boats stop aquatic hitchhikers.
Hi, we're back in great Christopher's going to tell us more about the beds we've been talking about. Now, this one is a different style of bed you're mentioning at break.
Right. This one here, made out of Jeffrey pine, a lot more character wood to it, and I do have a couple piles of this character wood. You can see the cat faces there. It's what they're called, the darker areas.
Well, character wood is because they're cat faces? I don't know what that means.
Yeah, it's actually where they're different shapes. Some of them are round, and I guess that's why they call them cat faces. But
where the weird indentation.
Yeah, there's no bark in that area of the tree. Yeah,
and it just looks better when it's burned. Is that what you mean?
Nah, well,
yeah, I can see it jumping out.
Actually, I do have some pieces that they went through a forest fire and the cat faces are burned. And if somebody be interested in something like that, I have some of that stuff available. But those were just they're darker from the sun, is what they are, because that was exposed to the sun. And then the lighter pine-colored areas are where the bark was, and I peeled it off.
So on this picture down below, you were mentioning something about having it where you can tuck in the bed frame or something?
Yeah, this is a queen-size bed, and I made it a little wider so that the blankets could actually tuck inside the side rails so that you can see down there, so that more of the wood is exposed instead of covering them up with
it's
the
absolutely
blankets.
Beautiful. I can tell about the pieces you're talking about now.
Right. Yeah, like there it shows a shot at right there, the side rails.
And then, what are those dark things called again?
Cat faces? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, as it looks pretty nice close up, I can see, and that's the whole thing right there.
Yeah, that was one of the footboard posts there that we saw, and then the two side rails. And that wood is grade from just being exposed to the sun, pretty much.
Wow. So when you get the wood home, do you take care of how long do you have to season the wood before you can work on it?
Well, those pieces there were already dried out, so after I get the bark off, maybe a couple weeks, depending.
Weeks?
Yeah.
Because I didn't think you just all of a sudden get home and start working on it.
Yeah, I've got to let it dry a little bit.
So right now you have a big stack behind your house?
I pretty much do, yeah. I've got piles ready to go. You bet.
So luckily you have a place where you have a big wood shop, or?
It's not that big. It's big enough. I can build a bed in there and maybe a bench, and then other items that smaller items that I build, coat racks, ski racks, wine racks.
Ski racks. Well, if people who like the bed and some of the other things we've shown already want to give you a call, how do they get a hold of you?
I have an email address. I also have a phone number.
You can go ahead and give it out.
Yeah, it's 775-901-3566, and the business is called Logworx.
And what's your email?
The email is GAKICE NBERG@yahoo.com.
And the story behind that?
You want to hear it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Gak Eisenberg. It's from an old Gary Larson cartoon.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. It's about a caveman that invents a silent mammoth whistle, and when he blows it, they come running, and he gets stampeded. It says down at the bottom, Gak Eisenberg invents the first and last silent mammoth whistle. Yeah, it was a good one.
I think that's perfect for your email address. It's a wood story of the first ice man.
Right.
So
inventor, yeah.
Yeah. So watch what you invent, young people. Learn from experience. So anyways, at break we brought in some not props, some of the work you did. This is a
right.
You want to tell us about this?
Yeah, this is a self-standing wine rack. It holds 3 bottles. There's another hole right here for a third bottle, and in it can actually be used 3 ways. You can either lay it down, or it'll stand by itself like you saw earlier there, or it can be mounted on a wall.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and it holds 3 bottles. I also have a friend that builds wine glass holders out of wood, and we take a piece of half log and mount it on the front there. So if anybody's interested in something like this, and they might want a wine glass rack, he builds those too.
Excellent. This is absolutely beautiful, and that's what you're talking about, darkening the wood with the.
Yeah, this is a darker piece. This bar stool here is natural, and the wine rack, I took a weed burner and put a light burn on it, and it's been polyurethaned. the bench hasn't been. It's just raw wood right now, so that's
this-
why it's so light.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Thanks.
It's like you spent some time on it too, and that's definitely worthy of someone calling right now and getting an order for it.
Yeah.
Excellent job.
Thanks.
I might pick one up myself. And you also brought something else for us.
Yeah, here's just a piece of wood that I hand peeled. It also has pretty much every piece of furniture that I put together has the tenon joint, and then there's the mortise hull. I just brought this for a sample. And then,
So back in the old days, like I was talking about, when the settlers come, this is pretty much something they did in the old days, exactly.
yep, they had. Well, these are done by power tools, actually.
Well, yeah, but-
back then, yeah, everything was done by hand, by draw knives and things like that, chisels and.
It's absolutely survival of the fittest.
Yeah, that's how. I mean, they'd move to a new place and just build their own furniture, you know.
Well, yeah, and that's just the name of the game, because when you get to your log cabin, you want to have
Right.
table and chairs, and that's
Exactly.
what you do. Only it's just modern, log furniture.
Yep, indoor, outdoor.
I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's just same as the old days. And then another tool you brought. Is it a tool?
Here's a draw knife, and this one is about halfway worn down. It's actually, I make them out of truck leaf springs.
No,
And,
what's a draw knife? I don't know what that is.
Oh yeah, it's just it's how we peel the bark off the
okay.
logs, and it actually gives the character marks.
So you use this on this,
Right, and I peel the bark off and then go from there. And then, some of the bugs and stuff underneath the bark, that gets rid of them, and then the piece of wood can dry out.
Excellent.
After I get the bark off, it takes a couple weeks.
Can you hold that up for people to see?
Yeah, you bet.
Because these almost, when I first saw it, I thought they looked like bones to me.
No, these are just some handles. Well, sometimes you get pitch on your hands, and that's why the handles are. I actually make the handles out of scrap pieces of pine that are laying around in the shop, and to shape them and lag bolt them on.
Excellent.
And yeah, thanks.
Well, that's absolutely beautiful. And then the next picture of your work is, I think, was this an outside, were you at the outside bench?
Yeah, that's one of the benches that I've made. That is actually, it'll set 3 people. It's one of the larger benches that I build. I also build a smaller version of that bench.
So they'll sit 3 people.
Yeah, and the smaller ones will set 2. 3 if you're really thin.
I was going to say.
Or smaller kids.
And that actually, I've seen a lot of those in some of the tourist areas, but it's absolutely beautiful. And do you have this at your house right now, or?
Yeah, it's sitting in my shop right now. I put a real light burn on it, and it hasn't been lacquered yet.
Well, this is probably
So
a
it's-
silly question, but how long can this furniture be outside? Can you stay outside? Is it tough enough? Or?
People usually keep them out all winter long. Actually, the indoor furniture, I think I mentioned before that it's glued and doweled, and the outside furniture I usually use lag bolts.
So it's tough enough to withstand our tough
Yeah,
winters?
if outdoor furniture was glued and it gets too wet, then the glue might loosen up and the piece would become.
Because with Nevada, it's so darn tough on wood. I just imagine.
Exactly.
So you make sure it's all ready to go and hang in there.
Yeah, polyurethane and stuff. Thing is, outside piece of furniture probably need another coat or 2 of polyurethane in a year or 2.
So probably every other year you need to just take care of it.
Yep.
Excellent.
You bet.
Is there any more pictures? Here we have.
Yeah, that's another picture of the bench, and you can see a pile of the logs there.
So that's the pile behind your house.
Yeah, that's one of them. That's one of them.
Well, that's an absolutely beautiful. And you said from your house you can see Job's Peak.
Yep.
So you're pretty spoiled.
Yeah, I am. You're right.
Uninterrupted view.
It's
and
beautiful.
And you're working on your furniture. Did we have any more pictures of your items? Oh, you said earlier when you're on the Forest Service you have to.
Yeah, that's a firebox. We had to keep shovels and Pulaskis and water inside that when we were running our chainsaws.
So it's just part of your contract.
Right. And
Well, it makes sense because
and we had to move as we moved along. We had to move that along too.
Well, Chris, at this point, what's your future? Are you going to do more Forest Service stuff, or are you going to concentrate on your furniture? Because if I were you, if you have enough wood for a few years, I would concentrate on the furniture.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
'Cause
That's
you
my
have-
plan.
Because
That's my plan.
besides my grandpa, I'm a little bit biased. You probably have as much or more talent than he, but he did it, you're still young. My grandpa is, was in
Yeah.
his late 70s when he stopped doing it. But I think you can go for a ways. And if people want to order any furniture, just what's your number again?
It's 775-901-3566.
Well,
in the Carson Valley, yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being on the show. And your name of your company is Logworx. This is Michael Smith for Nevada Trails. And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Mike.
I appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Thank you.
What lies beyond the curve in the trail? What secrets are there? My feet carry me into its veiled mystery, and I want to taste the sweet air and hear the song bestowed by nature. Just this once. Until the next curve, the next trail, the next walk through the Carson Valley. The Genoa Foothill Trail System will connect the Carson Valley with the Tahoe Rim Trail, providing a wonderful trail system near the oldest town in Nevada. This is just one of many projects the Carson Valley Trails Association is working on for our communities, but we cannot do it alone. Please contact us by visiting our website and find out about becoming a member or signing up to help build our community trails. We're looking forward to seeing you out in the most beautiful land Nevada has to offer.
Hi, last year I had the pleasure of going with a group called David John and the Comstock Cowboys to Fallon to shoot their Christmas special, and I really had a great time, and the band was very, very, very special. And this year David came to my home and brought his new DVD, and I told him I would put his music videos on the air. And without further ado, here's David John and the Comstock Cowboys.
I rode in the deadwood one dark stormy evening, tied up my horse to the rail. Heard the chink of his spurs on the hard wooden sidewalks. A stranger appeared from the dark and shadowy veil. He was all dressed in buckskin with a wide-brimmed sombrero. The wind blew his shoulder-length hair. Two pearl-handled six-guns stuck in his waistband. Said if you came here to gamble, you better beware. Keep your eyes on the door, keep your back to the wall. Never you trust any man. Keep one hand on the table, one on your pistol, or aces and eights would be your very last hand. Said his name, it was James, but folks called him Wild Bill. He came to these Black Hills for gold. The cards were his weakness, the guns were his strength, and the women and whiskey he used had taken their toll. He said the one rule he'd live by was the one that he'd broken, and for that mistake he'd pay the price. And if you go in that bar and you sit at the table, you better listen to me and heed my advice. Keep your eyes on the door, keep your back to the wall. Never you trust any man. Keep one hand on the table, one on your pistol, where aces and eights will be your very last hand. I looked down for a moment to uncinch my saddle. When I turned up, the stranger was gone. I walked into the bar, asked about the gunfighter that I had just met on the street. Only moments before, they smiled and they said they hear that same story whenever a stranger arrives. I sat back to the wall, they dealt me a full house, and the words the gunfighter had said ran through my mind. Keep your eyes on the door, keep your back to the wall. Never you trust any man. Keep one hand on the table, one on your pistol, or aces and eights will be your very last hand.
There's no wrangling jobs in Texas. It's the end of the cattle drives. Now they round 'em up and move 'em out by rail. They don't need no longhorns up in Kansas anymore. And the sun's going down on the old Chisholm Trail. No more dusty drives to Abilene, shooting up the town, getting drunk and waking up in jail. That way of life is over for a Texas cattle drover, and the sun's going down on the old Chisholm Trail. Into the sunset you must ride, boys, it's time to let go of yesterday. You drove your last drive, boys, it's time to saddle up and ride away. We'd push those cows across the waters of the swollen Red River. They'd fuss and fight, but the cowboy would prevail. We were tough as uncured leather, thought those days would last forever. Now the sun's going down on the old Chisholm Trail. Now it's a mighty empty trail from Fort Worth up to Kansas, where the dust would rise from all those broomtails. Then came the barbed wire and the greed. Now the cowboy's a dying breed, and the sun's going down on the old Chisholm Trail. Into the sunset you must ride, boys, it's time to let go of yesterday. You drove your last drive, boys, it's time to saddle up and ride away. I'll miss those nights around the campfire, drinking coffee in a tin, when all those buckaroos start swapping tales. I long to hear a cowboy cussing when them doggies start fussing. But the sun's going down on the old Chisholm Trail. The sun's going down